Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Woodstock City Council, May 20th, 2025. This hybrid meeting is being held in person here in council chambers and electronically in accordance with section 238, subsection 3.3 of the Municipal Act and section 16.6.24 of the City of Woodstock Procedure Bylaw. This meeting is being live streamed to the city's YouTube channel, and a recording will be posted on the city's website following the meeting. An agenda of the meeting can be found on the agendas, meetings, and minutes page of the city's website. We do not have any councilors attending virtually tonight, but I do want to put our thoughts and prayers out to Councillor Lauder, as she did lose her husband recently, so she is not in attendance, and we're just thinking of them in our thoughts and prayers. We did have a closed session this evening. We ended that we started at 6 and we ended at 6:32. With that, we'll get into disclosure of pecuniary interest. Councillor Tate.
I, Councillor D. Tate, declare the following potential pecuniary interest. Agenda item number 14B2, subject matter Wellington Street South reconstruction. Contract number 11370, tender award, general nature of the interest. My son is employed by the contractor.
Thank you. Councillor Martin.
Yes, I, Councillor Martin, declare the following indirect pecuniary interest on agenda item 18D. The subject matter 9744-225, a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw number 8626-10 as amended ZN 824-22, 747 Pavey Street and 97 Fife Street. The general nature is that I have a current business relationship with one of the applicants.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Leatherborough.
I, Councillor Kate Leatherbarrow, declare the following potential indirect pecuniary interest. Agenda item number 8A, subject matter Dwayne Kamala Thomas, Operations Manager, 2025 Downtown Woodstock Board of Management Budget Presentation. The general nature is I operate a business in the BIA district.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none. No disclosure of new business. Matters arising from the minutes. Seeing none. Now the minutes. Councillor Leatherborough.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Schadenberg, that the minutes of the regular meeting of Woodstock City Council held on March 6th, 2025 be adopted.
Thank you. Any questions or concerns with those? Seeing none. All those in favor? That is carried. Additions to the agenda. Councillor Leatherborough.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Wismer Van Meer, that the following items be added to the agenda. Delegation item 8B, Zach Burke, ZN 8-24-24, application for zone change, 1441180, Ontario Inc., 356 Kendall Avenue. And delegation item 8C, John Bell, zoning bylaw amendment appeal, ZN 8-23-07-401 Lakeview Drive. And department report item 14F2, zoning bylaw amendment appeal ZN 8-24-20-18 and 20 Delater Street.
Thank you. Any questions or concerns with those? Seeing none. All those in favor? That is carried. No presentations, but of course we do have delegations tonight. So we're going to start off on item 8A, Dwayne Kamala Thomas, Operations Manager. Please, welcome. 2025 Downtown Woodstock Board of Management Budget Presentation.
Hello, one and all. Thank you for having me. As mentioned, I am Dwayne Kamala Thomas, Operations Manager of Downtown Woodstock BIA, and this is a presentation of the budget. Our vision is that we are downtown Woodstock and it is the heart of Woodstock. Our vision is to make downtown a destination of choice for residents and visitors for shopping, dining, entertainment, diverse activations, and cultural experiences. Our directive is to improve and sustain the vibrancy and the prosperity of downtown Woodstock through beautification and promotional efforts. This is our pre-audit financials. 2024, our revenues were very close to budget, as well as our expenses. Our largest expenses relate to Street Fest and expanded advertising. We are requesting an increase of the levy to $205,525. And this will ensure that the BIA is not reliant on its reserves. As well, the BIA levy has not been raised since it was lowered during COVID. Our expenses are looking to go towards staffing costs to cover a part-time operations manager and current and additional part-time cleaning team. Advertising and marketing is significant to broaden the reach of the BIA beautification funds. These will be used for additional Christmas lighting in Museum Square. Promotional events are significantly more expensive to run these days, and the budget allows for continuation of Woodstock Shopping Nights, one of our staples, lunch concert series, Street Fest, which is July 18th, 19th, early plug, and Christmas in the Square as well. And that concludes this brief introduction. Any questions?
Thank you for that. Any questions from council? Councillor Shanberg.
Yeah, from the mayor through to Dwayne. I guess the best question would be is, I like the more of the cooperation that we've seen with the Economic Development Office for downtown Woodstock and yourself and the BIA board in general. Give us some ideas how the evolution of the skating rink with the fake floor, so to speak, evolved into coming into downtown, because I think that was a smart idea to have that in Museum Square.
Nice. Through your mayor to Councillor Schadenberg, it was brought up in one of our event committee that someone wished that we had a rink downtown, and I knew a guy that can offer such things. So we made a phone call and we had it installed, and it's been well received. As you said, it has a synthetic flooring, so although it is installed late into the season, we have it until April, and there's been quite a significant amount of rollerblading and some roller skating, which was nice to see as well. Yeah.
Anyone else? I'd just like to echo that I really like it downtown as well. I think that's been a big addition. In fact, been tagged hundreds of times, I think I'm almost safe to say. But all positive. That's the greatest thing about that. So
Indeed.
that's fantastic. So thank you.
Thank you.
To the board. Looking for a motion? Councillor Wismer Van Meer.
Moved by myself that Woodstock City Council approve the Downtown Woodstock BIA Board of Management 2025 budget as presented.
Is there a seconder on that? Councillor Tate? Discussion? Or questions? Seeing none, call the vote. All those in favor? That is carried. Next up, 8B, I'd ask Zach Burke to come forward. And this is on application ZN 8-24-24, which is an application for zone change for 356 Kendall Ave. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I also like the downtown rink. For what it matters. Good evening, council. Thank you for allowing me the time to speak with you today about the project that we are building at 356 Kendall Avenue. The current triplex that we have on Kendall Avenue is in massive disrepair. It's time that it needs to be changed. We're proposing to replace it with 3 two-story townhomes. I did provide a front elevation as well as plans for you all to view. I'm not sure if we can put that up on the screen, but I did send it in, but that's fine. If it's not there, that's totally okay.
It might be right in front of you on the desktop if you happen
I don't
to
see it. It's okay. It's not a big deal. I
Okay.
did send it. I did submit it though to council to have a look at. Beautiful, two-story towns. They'll fit in awesome with the neighborhood. Super excited to see what it's going to look like. These homes will provide much needed entry-level homes in the south of Woodstock for young families, walking distance to one of the crown jewels of Woodstock, Southside Park. It's a large piece of land that we are utilizing intelligently. We have lots of space sufficient for privacy, good-sized backyards, 3 parking spots per unit, overly sufficient parking, as well as plenty of front yard space for snow removal as well. Again, thank you for having me, and I'm open to any questions from council.
Thank you, Mr. Burke. Any questions? Councillor Sandberg.
Yeah, from the mayor through to Mr. Burke, the triplex is there currently. It is vacant, is it not?
It is vacant, yes.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, guys.
No resolutions required as this refers to consideration of planning reports, item 9A. So that brings us to 8C, Mr. Bell, zoning bylaw amendment appeal, ZN 8-23-07, 401 Lakeview Drive. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is John Bell, and I'm here at the request of and with many members of Alder Grange and Sally Creek impacted by the proposed development of 401 Lakeview. The good news tonight, happy night, is we're not here opposed to anything. The community did meet on Monday evening and we resolved 3 matters. First of all, after consideration of recent press reports quoting emails from the applicant, name calling and vilifying council for their denial of the zoning amendment, the community voted to express their vote and support of council publicly here tonight. We want to thank council for the approval of over 3,000 new homes along OR 17 and Cairn Road in 6 subdivision plans, particularly because all of them fell within the standards and the intent of our official plan and bylaws that protect the quality of development in our community. More significantly, in this age of intensification, with an average density, gross density of 16 units per hectare, they all met or exceeded the county and the provincial goals for density. That density can be observed by driving down OR 17, and we have seen or heard of no one that feels that density is not enough. Even so, with regard to this 401 property, the government demonstrated in their application that within those same official plan and bylaw standards, they could almost double that density from 16 to 29 medium density units per hectare. To put a picture on that, it would be like building another house in every low density backyard, but it was still a good plan with little impact on the surrounding community and would have been in the public interest. With regard to the Fahari proposal, the planning report state it is a density of 65 units per hectare. That's 400% or 4 times the current average of 16, and twice what the government was able to squeeze onto this land. 4 times the units, 4 times the cars, 4 times as many people. That is why we speak tonight and speak out in support of council's decision to deny the zoning bylaw amendment. It would have permitted too much in too little space in too wrong a place. It would not be, as the applicant has stated in their grounds for appeal, consistent with the Oxford County official plan, represent good planning, or be in the public interest. Secondly, the community considered their options in regard to the applicant's appeal of council's decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal. They voted to also act in support of that decision. should council vote tonight to defend that action. And we will make application to be a party to the appeal. Rather than just be a participant who can only submit written statements, as a party, our experts will also be able to testify at the tribunal and present their comprehensive assessments of the application and how it fails to meet the intent of our official plan and zoning bylaws, resulting in overdevelopment of this site. We ask that you vote tonight in support of that defense. Lastly, the community considered their options with regard to the other two applications for official plan amendment and draft plan of subdivision, still to be considered by county council next Wednesday. They voted to oppose the approval of these two applications, just as you have, and make representation at the county public meeting with focus on 4 matters as backed by our experts' opinions. The high density block being contrary to all official plan location criteria, the medium density block on Lakeview, contrary to the infill requirements of the official plan, the OR 59 access request, contrary to arterial road standards, the county bylaw, and the opinion of county staff that was reversed by county management based only as stated at our public meeting on the preference of the application for conditions that no longer exist. And number 4, Street A, Lakeview Drive exit, which is proposed to cross private lands to which the applicant has no right of access. We ask for the support of our county councilors as well. I'm happy to answer any questions, and on behalf of the community, we thank you for your dedication to protect the interests of all the residents of our city and our quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd ask no claps. That's okay. Thank you. Looking at questions from council. Seeing none, I guess we're very familiar with this application. I just want to say thank you to the community. It means a lot that you're always here together, that you do represent through one voice. It is appreciated for time's sake and everything else. And thank you to everybody. No resolution is required as this refers to Department Report Item 14F.1 as referenced by Mr. Bell. So that brings us to consideration of planning reports. First up, 9A, ZN 8-24-24, application for zone change for 356 Kendall Ave. Mr. Gilbert, welcome.
Thank you. As noted, this is a zone change application to rezone the property from R2 to a special R3 zone to allow for a development of a triplex, or sorry, a townhouse, 3-unit townhouse development to replace an existing triplex. The lands are designated low density residential, which does permit the townhouse use. The applicant is also requesting for a reduced lot frontage for the easterly unit from 8 meters to 7.3 meters and reduced side yards for the end units. It's noted that the side yard of the westerly unit is greater to facilitate a future access easement, which would allow, if the properties were severed, the middle unit would have access to the backyard through an easement to be established on the west and south edge of the end unit. Overall, staff are satisfied the proposal meets the official plan and PPS criteria. Townhouses are considered a compatible form of development. There's no increase in the number of units from what's there today, and the reduced setback of 1.2 meters on the easterly lot line for the end unit is consistent with the setbacks for a semi-detached dwelling or single detached dwelling and is prevalent in this area. For this reason, staff recommend approval of the requested application.
Thank you. Questions of the planner? Seeing none, then I'll look for a motion. Counselor Tate.
I'll move that Woodstock City Council approve the zone change application submitted by 1441180 Ontario Inc., whereby the lands described as Plan 77, part lots 58 and 59, known municipally as 356 Kendall Ave, City of Woodstock, are to be rezoned from residential zone 2 to special residential zone 3 to facilitate the development of 3 townhouse dwelling units, and further that any comments received from the public were reviewed and considered before the decision was made in relation to this planning matter.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Counselor Leatherborough? Questions or discussion? Seeing none, call the vote. All those in favor? That is carried. Next up, 9B, CD 25-01-8, a draft plan and condominium for 200 Montclair Drive. Mr. Gilbert.
Thank you. These are applications for approval for a draft plan of condominium and exemption from the draft approval process. The lands are a commercial piece of property located behind Walmart and west of the Home Depot on the northwest corner of Juliana and Montclair Drive. Currently, there is a commercial plaza under construction consisting of 16 individual units. The proposed condominium would have each of the individual units in the buildings able to be individually owned and sold. And all of the parking areas and the entrances, landscaping and loading spaces would remain as the common element in the condominium. This city staff granted site plan approval to this project in March of 2023, and the applicant has signed a site plan agreement with the city. In this case, it's appropriate to exempt the project from draft plan of condominium approval, as all of the development matters have been addressed through the site plan process. As such, staff support the application and the request.
Thank you. Any questions of the planner? Yes, I do have one. Is it safe to assume this is exactly the same as a residential piece of property as far as condominiums are concerned, where the homeowner, or sorry, the business owners would have to pay condominium fees, whatever those are, to maintain the property?
That's correct. So there would, similar to any other condominium, there'd be a reserve fund established that would establish the cost of maintaining and replacing all of the common elements, which in this case would be primarily the parking area, but also any landscaping or buffers or loading space. So each of the owners of those units would have a proportionate share of maintenance and upkeep of the common element.
Hate to assume, so I figured I'd ask. So thank you. Any other questions of council? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? That is carried. Oh, sorry. I didn't get a motion on the floor, did I? We better do that. I saw everybody's look and it was like, oh, Counselor Wismer Van Meer. Yeah.
I was wondering for a second. Moved by myself that Woodstock City Council advise County Council that the city supports the application for draft approval of a proposed condominium submitted by Woodstock Business Center, Inc., file number CD 25-01-8, prepared by Rudy Mack Surveying Limited for lands described as part of Lot 10, Plan 41M82, Part Lot 9 of RCP 1654, Part 2 of 41R-9080 in the city of Woodstock, and further that Woodstock City Council advise County Council that the city supports the application for exemption from the draft plan of condominium approval process submitted by Woodstock Business Center, Inc., file number CD 25-01-8, prepared by Rudy Mack Surveying Limited for lands described as part of Lot 10, Plan 41M82, Part Lot 9 of RCP 1654, Part 2 of 41R-9080 in the city of Woodstock, as all matters relating to the development have been addressed through the site plan approval process and a registered site plan agreement with the city of Woodstock, and further that any comments received from the public were reviewed and considered before the decision was made in relation to this planning matter.
Perfect. Thank you. Looking for a seconder? Counselor Tate? Now, before I call the vote again, any other questions, comments on that? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All those in favor? That is carried. Next up, we have consideration of correspondence. So 10A, 2025 IG Wealth Management Walk for Alzheimer's. Looking for a motion? Councillor Leatherborough.
Moved by myself that Woodstock City Council approves the request from the Alzheimer's Society to display a two-sided advertising road sign from April 28th to May 26th, 2025 at the corner of Juliana Drive and Finkel Street, subject to staff approval.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Wismer Van Meer. Questions or discussion? Seeing none, call a vote. All those in favor? That is carried. No presentations from staff, no mayor's reports, no council reports, but we do have some department reports, of course, tonight. So we're going to start off with 14A, Administrative Services. 14A1, 2024 Tender Awards. Looking for a motion? Councillor Tate.
I'll move that Woodstock City Council receive the 2024 Tender Awards Report as information.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Leatherborough. Discussion or questions? Seeing none. All those in favor? That is carried. Next up, 14A2, 2024 removal expenses. Councillor Leatherborough.
Moved by myself that Woodstock City Council receive the 2024 remuneration and expenses report as information.
Thank you, Councillor Leatherborough. Seconder, Councillor Schanberg. Questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is carried. Well, that brings us to 14A3, 2025 Revenue Budget Approval. So we do have a lot of different recommendations here. We're going to go through and see what recommendations are brought forward. Councillor Tate.
I'll move that the annual contribution to the road reconstruction reserve be increased by 400,000 to 800,000.
Seconder on that? See, Councillor Schanberg? Discussion? Questions? Councillor Tate?
Just a comment, we're way behind on our roads and we're gonna end up with debt if we don't increase it.
Thank you. Councillor Schanberg?
Yeah, I recall going to a meeting with our chief engineer, Harold DeHaan, and he said in a perfect world, we'd be able to do all our road repairs, our road refinishings, by strictly using reserves. Well, we certainly can't do that if we don't have a hefty reserve fund, or at least an approved reserve fund. And I know Harold DeHaan was being serious, but not necessarily serious when he said that. And maybe I could ask him to sort of explain the idea of possibly being able to do more road work from reserves and expecting the levy to pay for it every year.
Your worship, through the counselor, basically being able to fund the road, any project really, from reserves rather than from the levy means that, one, we have the money available, and then it also impacts our ability for debt also.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Leatherborough.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I won't support this amount, but I do have a separate motion if this is defeated.
Thank you. Anyone else? Well, I'll certainly add that I've been torn on this one. Debt is a powerful tool when you need it to spread the cost out to many people moving forward versus reserves that are impacted right away. There's advantages to both ways of thinking. You know, with debt, you have people that can pay for it over 20 years that are going to benefit from the use of that roads or immediately on the tax levy. So this is one of those questions you always boil down to. How do you live at my own house and how do I use debt? So with that, Councillor Tate.
Just through the chair, just a reminder, the last part of the city engineer, we have to be careful with debt because the debt will affect our rating and we can only have so much debt. So it's not easy to say, well, we'll just debt because it's cheaper, because it's going to impact everybody in the long term.
Yes, and I would certainly agree with that if we were close to our capacities for debt. Absolutely, and we're lucky we're not. We have been very good over the years, but I see a lot of debt financing in our future, unfortunately, with new recreation facilities and things like that coming. So this is where I'm torn, for sure. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, then I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Next up, Councillor Leatherborough.
Moved by myself that a one-time contribution to the capital in the amount of 200,000 be approved to replace 2025 debenture financing on York Street, bracket George Street to Adelaide Street, bracket.
Thank you. Is there a seconder on that motion? Seeing none, and that motion fails, we'll look for another motion. Councillor Tate.
We'll try this one, that a one-time contribution to capital in the amount of 343,000 be approved to replace 2025 debenture financing on York Street, George Street to Adelaide Street.
Seconded by Councillor Martin. Discussions or questions? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Looking for another motion on the floor. Councillor Tate.
I'll move that a one-time contribution to capital in the amount of 518,000 be approved to replace 2025 debenture financing on Powell Street, Salter Ave to Parkinson Road.
Thank you. Is there a seconder on that? Councillor Schadenberg. Discussion or questions? Councillor Tate.
Just through the chair, just for the public's benefit, this is so it's not going directly on the taxpayer.
Thank you. Any other comments or remarks? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. Looking for another motion on the floor. Councillor Leatherborough.
Moved by myself that a one-time contribution to a new Cowan Sportsplex indoor turf replacement reserve in the amount of 750,000 be approved to replace 2026 debenture financing.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Tate. Discussion or questions? Councillor Schadenberg.
Yeah, from the mayor, again, a question maybe is clarification for the public. I'm not sure if Mr. Creary or Mr. Connors from Parks and Recreation would answer the question, but the $750,000 being put aside in a reserve would certainly not pay the full bill for this, but what year do you then therefore project that this work would get done?
Your worship, through to the councilor's question, this would pay for about half of a new indoor turf, and we would look to do this project in the following year.
So 2026 to be clear.
Yes.
Any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? None opposed, that's carried. Looking for another motion on the floor? No, well, Counselor Tate,
I'll move that a one-time contribution to capital in the amount of $125,000 be approved to finance 50% of the 2026 final payment related to the purchase of 478, 484 Dundas Street.
thank you. Is there a seconder on that? Counselor Wismer Van Meer, discussion? Or questions? Seeing none, call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Looking for other motions, Counselor Leatherborough.
I was going to jump back one to number 5, that an annual contribution to a new public art reserve in the amount of $5,000 be approved.
There a seconder on that? Counselor Tate, discussioners or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. Looking for another motion on the floor? Counselor Tate,
I'll move number 9, that the staffing request from the engineering department for a full-time manager facilities maintenance in the amount of $65,850 be approved, and further that $3,000 from IT equipment be approved.
thank you. Seconded by Counselor Martin. Discussion or questions? Seeing none, I'll call a vote. All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. Counselor Leatherborough,
Number 10, I'll move that the staffing request from the Parks and Recreation Department for one full-time horticultural technician in the amount of $52,000 be approved.
Counselor Martin is seconded. Any further questions, discussions? Counselor Leatherborough,
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll just add that this was not approved last year, so deferred however you look at that, but it is this year, so that's why I moved the motion.
Counselor Tate. Sorry, having troubles with my microphone.
Just through the chair, I'm not supporting this one. I didn't support it last year, but I think there's so many needs this year that I can't support that one.
Okay, any other discussions or questions? Call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Looking for another motion on the floor. Counselor Wismer Van Meer.
Number 11, I move that the staffing request from the Parks and Recreation Department for one full-time recreation clerk at Cowan Sportsplex in the amount of $27,800 be approved, and further that $3,000 for information technology equipment be approved.
Okay, thank you. Seconded by Counselor Schadenberg. Discussion? Counselor Wismer Van Meer.
This was something that was actually brought up in the budget meeting, but it's really becomes a lot of work for the folks out at the Sportsplex when you have a large number of part-time folks, and if somebody's calling in, it was a lot of coordinating for them, but there's actually some moving around of dollars to help decrease some of the expenses to create this one. So I thought they did a very good job of putting this together, and it's a role that's really needed in that complex.
Yes, I agree. That's become evident over the years, for sure, with the amount of usage. Counselor Schadenberg, can I see your hand up?
Going back up the list, that the staffing request from the Human Resources Department for a full-time Human Resources Assistant.
Sorry, we have to vote on this one. Sorry.
Oh,
that was
sorry.
for comments. I thought you had a
Okay.
question or comment still on number 11. is
Yeah, I'll
where
vote
we
in
at.
favor of number
Okay,
11.
Yeah. Okay. Still on Counselor Leatherborough.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Connors, just for the public's benefit too, I believe in the budget presentation, this position would also help the camps. Obviously, camps are wildly successful. Councillor Wismer Van Meer mentioned the part-time staff, but I vaguely remember camps being mentioned. So if you don't have that answer, that's also fine too.
Your worship, through to the councillor's question. This position, number 11, is a clerk position. So what it'll do is it will help provide overall assistance to the Sportsplex, but also deal with recreation and camps writ large. But the fair program will also be involved. It will be a training position, so it can actually provide more training for our part-time folks so that they can take on more, so that the full-time staff aren't so buried in work.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions? Before I call a vote, I just want to pause. We have a lot of staff here, so if council does have questions and would like staff to come forward to ask those, with your permission, of course, we can always ask them to come forward since they are here tonight. Meant to mention that earlier. So with that, any other questions on number 11? Is where we are. I'll call the vote. All those in favor? None opposed. Thank you. Counselor Schadenberg.
Yeah, that the staffing request from the Human Resources Department for a full-time Human Resources Assistant in the amount of $49,250 be approved, and for the $3,000 for information technology equipment be approved.
Thank you. Is there a seconder on that? Seeing none? That fails. Moving along. Looking for another motion on the floor. Counselor Tate.
I'll move number 13, that's staffing request for Parks and Recreation Department to convert one part-time Southside Aquatic Center custodian to one full-time Southside Aquatic Center custodian with a net cost of $7,050 be approved.
Sorry, Counselor Tate. That was number 13, I believe you're moving. Okay, just want to make sure. Seconder, Counselor Wismer Van Meer. Discussion, questions? Seeing none, call the vote. All those in favor? None opposed. Looking for any other motions on the floor? Counselor Wismer Van Meer.
Number 15, I'll move that the staffing request from the Economic Development Department for one summer student in the amount of $14,250 be approved.
Seconded by Counselor Martin. Discussions or questions? Counselor Wismer Van Meer.
I just want to point out that it is in the budget, or in the budget presentations as well, but there is an application for grants funding for this, but of course, not all of those responses come in when we're doing the budget, but that is something that staff has gone about, so that number could very well change in that aspect.
Yes, thank you for mentioning that. Any other questions, thoughts before I call the vote? All those in favor? None opposed. Any other motions on the floor? Counselor Leatherborough?
I'm going to jump back to 14, that the staffing request from the Woodstock Art Gallery for one part-time front desk attendant in the amount of 21,000 be approved.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Seeing none? Okay, moving along. Counselor Martin?
Not feeling great, so I'll try and speak. That the staffing requested from the Woodstock Public Library for one full-time manager of facilities in the amount of 57,700 be approved.
Is there a seconder? Counselor Leatherborough? Discussions or questions? Counselor Martin?
Just wanted to highlight that while this might sound like a similar position to the motion that we already passed for, I believe it was number 9, it is actually a very different position. It's not duplication, it's not overlap. There are some unique needs at the library, given that it's an aging building, and that is what the intent here is to address.
Okay. Anyone else? Well, I got to say that I'm actually going to vote against this one. And no offense to the library at all. It's just I'd like to see that position of number 9 as discussed brought into effect, see what that really looks like before we add any more staff. That's myself. Any other comments or questions before I call the vote? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Counselor Leatherborough?
Number 19, that the request from the moved by myself, that the request from the Information Technology Department for cyber resiliency software in the amount of 86,500 be approved.
Seconded by Counselor Tate. Questions or discussions? Seeing none, call the vote. All those in favor? None opposed. That is carried. Counselor Tate?
I'll move 17, that the request from the Administrative Services Department for a contract staff position to the end of 2027 to manage the transition implementation of new financial property taxation, payroll, human resource, and business management software in the amount of 30,000 financed from the salary reserve in 2025 be approved, and further that 3,000 from IT equipment be approved. Thank
you. Is there a seconder? Counselor Martin? Discussion or questions? Counselor Tate?
Just a comment, this one's going from reserve, so, and I also think that it will end up saving all kinds of hours of, what currently is being doing where we're really short-staffed.
I totally agree with that myself as well. Any other questions or discussions before I call the vote? those in favor? None opposed. Looking for other motions, Counselor Wismer Van Meer.
Number 20, that the request from the Engineering Department Bylaw Enforcement Division for funding to transition from the Provincial Offences Act, POA system of administrative penalties to the Administrative Monetary Penalty System, AMPS, in the amount of 52,000 be approved, and further that 16,000 for information technology equipment be approved.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Counselor Tate? Questions or discussion? Counselor Wismer Van Meer.
I'm going to ask if Mr. Dahan would be able to just maybe quickly explain in a really quick, short synopsis for us exactly what this looks like without, I know that it's in the report, there is details, but maybe just a quick pick for us.
Your worship, through the counselor, basically, sorry, AMPs allows us to mail in fines or tickets and also add them to the property taxes if they're not paid. Basically, kind of, it becomes a fine, not a it's more of a bill, so we can avoid the court system.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussions? That was definitely the short version. Seeing none, I'll call a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Counselor Schanberg.
I'll make a motion at the request from the Marketing and Communications Department for funding for the planning of the City of Woodstock's 125th anniversary celebrations, and the amount of $5,000 be approved from the contingency reserve.
Thank you. Seconded by Counselor Tate. Discussion or questions? No, the city's got a big date coming up, of course, next year, and this will give them a little start they need. With that, I'll call a vote. All those in favor? None opposed. That is carried. Counselor Leatherborough.
Moved by myself, 22, that the staffing request from the Parks and Recreation Department for 1 full-time assistant supervisor and 2 full-time skilled laborers for encampment response in the amount of $194,250 be approved. And further, that council approve additional expenditures for vehicle operations, communications, equipment, personal protective equipment, training, and waste management in the amount of $47,700. And further, that the budget for parks cleanup purchased services account 0701-83125-0393 be reduced from 150,000 to 80,000. And further, that council approve the purchase of a new truck at a cost of 55,000.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Counselor Martin, discussions or questions? Counselor Leatherborough.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, rapid speed. Again, this was presented last year and it's a different version, obviously. There is partnership this year with the County of Oxford. I do believe that this will continue to be a concern within our public parks and spaces. Certainly as we run parallel trying to get the Heart Hub up and running and this future homelessness center. But I do think that it is something that needs this addition to base budget. Although it's modified and not as large as last year, I do think that this is the most proactive response for something that is not quote unquote going away. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you. Counselor Tate.
Through the chair, I'm not going to support this. I did have a meeting with our MPP because I know there's legislation right now on the books for the province and they're dealing with it. So for me to put this on the taxpayer right now when we'll have, so the legislation that they're doing is going to help get rid of the encampments. And we've spent all this money trying to navigate as it is. So I cannot support this because once the legislation comes through, I think it'll make a huge difference on these encampments, and we'll be able to enforce, and the police will be able to enforce, which they haven't been able to until this time. And then we'll be left with this on the books, so, I can't support it.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Counselor Wismer Van Meer.
This is one that I've gone back and forth on multiple times. Kind of maybe tailing off a little bit about what Councillor Tate said, you know, once this is implemented, it's there, but at the same time, I've noted in my third budget now, there's one area that does continue to grow and grow and grow, and that is Parks and Rec. So knowing that we are hiring folks on for these roles, there are other opportunities in other areas to move into it. I don't think this problem is going to go away. You know, the issues of having to clean up our areas is going to be going away in the foreseeable future, but I think there's still work out there for these roles to be doing and these hires to be doing in the future. So I guess that's kind of where I find the justification in this is that staff have mentioned that in the event that, you know, we are able to put a roof over everybody's head, which is obviously the ultimate goal, there is other work to be done with these potential 3 hires. So I think that's kind of where I'm leaning towards supporting this at this point.
Thank you. Counselor Leatherborough.
And through you, Mr. Mayor, I can appreciate, you know, if a counselor does or does not support for various reasons. I do think that it is also complex. We've seen significant police increases in the 3 years that I've been around council, and I think whether it's legislation or moving people along, I question where we're moving people along to. But the fact of the matter is that if encampments are dismantled, I do think that it's not going to be just police or EMS or fire. I think that we have a strong municipal team that can certainly lend experience in that area. But I would also mention that this addition to base budget will be continuously dealing with illegal dumping. I certainly have been called nonstop about the bag tag increase, which we're not going to get into here, but it ties into illegal dumping and what does that look like in the forecasted year, as well as graffiti. I think a couple weeks ago, I drove by Reeves Community Complex and there was graffiti spray paint on the main sign there. So I do think that this is, although written in a way to focus on encampments, which I support that work personally, but I do think that illegal dumping on the trails, whether it be bag take increases or not, there's never a shortage of work. So I just want to kind of add that, but I do respect that we can land differently on this decision.
Thank you. Counselor Martin.
I'll support the motion. I feel it's important to support the existing staff that we have that are dealing with encampment response. This is not an easy job. This is a complex job that is probably getting more and more complex with each quarter. And my fear is that if we don't give staff the resources to respond, we may not only lose good staff, we will be in a predicament of a challenge in recruiting new staff for this very complex job.
Thank you. Anyone else? Well, I'll just add that I certainly support this. I'd rather be spending money on our own staff and giving them the tools they need to do a job versus contracted services. I recognize and hope, of course, that with everything we're doing here in Woodstock and Oxford County in general, we'll see less and less people in homeless. Right now, it is an issue. Encampments are real. With the amount of growth our Parks and Rec are experiencing, I have no doubt we've got enough work to keep going if that day comes and encampments are not an issue, that when the extension of Southside Park and everything goes, we'll have lots more work. So with that, any final questions or discussion before I call the vote? With that, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Any other motions? Councillor Martin?
Moved by myself that council reduce the contribution to the Sylvania band provision for reserve account 0204-833260000 from 3,000 to 0.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Counselor Tate? Discussion or questions? Counselor Martin?
Yeah, the intention behind this is $3,000 that we tax the public for every year, put away money into a reserve so that every handful of years we can afford to support the Sylvania, our sister city band, coming to participate in our what's the winter? Santa Claus parade. Thank you. We have not brought the band here in a number of years. I think it's almost close to 10 years. And so we continue to tax people for this purpose that we haven't utilized. As I will add into my comment in the next motion that I don't believe in this political climate, I'm inclined to spend taxpayer dollars on American travelers coming to Ontario to subsidize that. So that was the intention to the motion.
Any other comments or questions? I'm certainly going to support this because we have been putting money away for quite a number of years, though I do fully support our sister city relationship. Let me be clear, in this one item, I think there is enough money there that we can suspend at least money in there currently. So with that, I'll call a vote. All those in favor? None opposed. That is carried. Counselor Martin?
Thank you, Mayor Atchioney. That moved by myself that council reduce the budget for council sister cities account 1200-71254-0000 from 13,000 to 2,000.
Thank you. Is there a seconder on the motion? Counselor Leatherborough? Discussion? Counselor Martin?
Thank you, Mayor Atchioney. So again, along that theme, we annually budget money for our cross-border exchange with our sister city in Sylvania. Typically, our committee goes down twice a year and they come up here once a year. I'm just not inclined under this current climate to spend Woodstock taxpayer money on our committee traveling into the US right now. If they wish to travel here, and we sometimes host them and put together some activities. So I left $2,000 in there for that purpose. Again, I echo, I value the relationship. The current trade war between Canada and the US is not the fault of our sister city or that committee. I'm just not inclined to spend Woodstock taxpayer dollars on our travel to the US right now.
Thank you. Anyone else? Comments or questions? Seeing none, I'm not going to support this. I believe the relationships that are 30 years plus old are greater than what's going on just today. I will admit, though, I went back and forth on this a little bit in my head trying to decide. But again, I don't think the punishment of to Sylvania, Ohio and those relationships, especially with Mayor Stout just retiring and a new mayor, Mark Fry, being named there. I think this is a critical time for those relationships if anything becomes better very shortly. As mentioned, I did go back and forth on this one. But at the end of the day, I'm going to support keeping that relationship going best I can. Councillor Tate.
I'm going to support the motion, not for the same reasons, but because I don't think we should be subsidizing travel anyways through the taxpayers for this. I think if somebody from the committee still wants to go, they can pay, because I think people from the committee did pay out of pocket, some of them that went the last time. So I'm full for the relationship, but I don't think the taxpayers should be paying for it. I think we had the same issue over at county on some, they wanted travel money. And I think this is one of these things when times are tough, the taxpayers shouldn't be on the hook for it. So I'm going to support the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Wismer Van Meer.
I'm just going to echo what Councillor Tate said. This is one of the committees that I do sit on. And it was very well one of the first things I thought of when things started to happen in the last month and a half. And kind of what Councillor Tate said, I think that if there are committee members who choose to visit our sister city, if any of council members choose to do that, I think it's just we have to pay for those things. And same with the committee members. Those are things that we should be taking responsibility for. And I do feel like we will keep our relationships going. But yeah, that's why I'm going to support that at this time.
Thank you. Anyone else? I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Next up, Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Attorney. Moved by myself that council increase the budget for museum program camps PA days revenue account 070767716000 from 20,000 to 30,000.
Thank you. Is there a seconder on that? Councillor Tate, discussion? Councillor Martin?
This was just a conversation with Karen that the budget of 20,000 was submitted before the full year end numbers were available. And once we kind of came to realize that the actual revenue in last year was a little bit higher than what was budgeted, it kind of makes some sense to increase it to the actuals from 2024.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? I'll certainly say I agree with this one. I think this is more actual. It's factual for as far as the budget's concerned myself. So anyone else before I call the vote? All those in favor? None opposed. That is carried. So there was some items that we did skip over just to be sure and clear. Last chance before I call Councillor Tate.
Last minute motion, I think I emailed to you, because of the work that Councillor Martin did, that the balance in the Sylvania Band Reserve account 01705154-000 and the amount of 27,000 be transferred to the Road Reconstruction Reserve 01705112-0519.
Okay, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Martin. Discussion, Councillor Tate.
Just through the chair, I know in the grand scheme of things, $27,000 is not a lot for road reconstruction, but it is sitting in the reserve, doing nothing, and we're probably not going to use it. So it might as well go to where we have the biggest need.
Any other questions or discussion? Well, as mentioned before, I'm in favor of the relationship. I don't want to see, since that money has been spent and it's sitting there, I will not support this with hopes that those relationships could continue. I know many residents enjoy the band that comes from Sylvania, but with that, any other comments or questions before I call a vote? Seeing none, call a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Any other additions, thoughts? I'm sorry, I'm just checking my emails. I don't see anything else. I apologize, Councillor Tate. I didn't see that earlier. Seeing none. I'll look for a motion related to final approval of the budget. Councillor Leatherborough.
Moved by myself that Woodstock City Council approve the 2025 Revenue Fund budget as amended and that the Director of Administrative Services be directed to prepare the necessary bylaw for council consideration.
Any seconder. Sorry. Councillor Wismer Van Meer. Discussion. Councillor Leatherborough.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I would ask if the CAO has the final number for the mayor. Perfect, thanks.
Yes, I think staff, of course, always on the ball, and that brings us to a final levy of $82,381,340 for 2025. Final levy increase is $6,686,180. Final levy percentage increase would be 8.83%. With growth considered, tax rate increase would go to 6.33%. And the tax increase on average homes would be $191.18 based on the average for MPEC. So, any rethoughts? Councillor Schanberg.
Again, a question through to the mayor, or maybe anybody else that was on county council. What was the per household increase as projected from the county budget? I know maybe it's a difficult question to ask you off the top of your head.
The clerk was just, or our deputy CAO, sorry, was kind enough to mention it was $80. Of course, this 191.18 does not include county or the education piece as well. Any other questions or discussion? Councillor Schanberg.
I think it was at the first meeting in February, whatever date that was, that we had the building permits report from 2024. But even if you go back to the 2023 years and trying to calculate the amount of increase in revenue coming into the city of Woodstock, when you start calculating the number of units are being built, whether they're detached homes or townhouses, I'm just looking at sort of the overall number to think that the 2024 building permit number, it was up by 1.8 million, whereas in 2021, I know that was only 3 years ago, was 2.9 million increase in sort of monies coming in from additional building of residential properties, and that was something from our budget or from previous building reports. I just find it very difficult to be able to say that it's fine to be able to sustain that sort of an increase in taxation when especially when we look at the numbers for 2025 and the number of houses that are in essence getting built this year, that it'd be very difficult to be able to keep up this increase in taxation and levy to the taxpayers.
Was that directed at anybody in particular, or is that just a comment? Just to be clear. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Leatherborough.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll just make a comment that this is my third budget and they seemingly are not getting any easier. But I do value, through my experience, this has been a contributing effort. So I do appreciate that. I know this council can be tense at times, but I think everyone's effort is greatly appreciated from myself anyways. But certainly also acknowledging that had we only approved the base, the bare minimum, if you would, we were still looking at a 2.8% increase. 6.33% is tough and we'll have some time to absorb. But I just want to make mention that we didn't just flick a switch and it was 6.33%. The base was already looking at a bit of an inflation. And I do think that it's important to mention that. And I want to thank council's contributions tonight.
Yes, well said. Anyone else? Well, this is why we're all sitting around this room and chambers, and I thank everybody for taking the time and asking questions to staff. I want to say thank you to staff for always being there and always willing to answer questions. With a 2.81, let me call it inflationary, just the status quo, as mentioned by Councillor Leatherborough, it is difficult these days. And it's difficult as far as council is concerned to try to be a growing city and yet not have any taxes go up. So these are tough. These are tough decisions. There's no questions. I don't think anything we've done tonight was really of any one signal significance, but it does all add up. And that's where we get caught with an increase of over 6%. It's lower than it started out, of course, so I want to say thank you to our senior leaders, management, going through and kind of narrowing it down best possible to what was needed, and then, of course, those discussions we've had. So with that, any other comments or questions before I call a vote? Seeing none, I'll call a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Brings us to engineering. 14B.1, street naming, former Woodstock Hospital subdivision. Looking for a motion. No motion on the floor. Counselor Tate?
Sorry, I thought Counselor Schadenberg, who likes to name the streets, was gonna do the motion. So I'll move that Woodstock City Council name the street in the former Woodstock Hospital subdivision as Len's Way.
Thank you. Is there a seconder on that motion? Counselor Schadenberg. Discussion? Or questions? Counselor Tate?
The reason for the name is because Mr. Len Reeves bought the property and is developing it, and he's been a giant contributor to this community, and without his partnership on a number of facilities, we wouldn't be where we are.
Yes, couldn't agree more. If you drive around the city, you'll see Reeves' name on a bunch of other facilities as mentioned. Any other questions, comments before I call the vote? All those in favor? None opposed. Next up, 14B.2, Wellington Street South reconstruction. Counselor Leatherborough.
Moved by myself that Woodstock City Council award the tender for the reconstruction of Wellington Street South to Viewcon Construction Limited in the amount of $915,726.31 inclusive of HST.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Counselor Wismer Van Meer. Discussions or questions? Seeing none, we'll call a vote. All those in favor? That is carried. Nothing from Cultural Services, Parks and Rec, or Economic Development tonight, but we do have clerks. 14F.1, Zoning Bylaw Amendment Appeal, 401 Lakeview Drive. Counselor Leatherborough.
Moved by myself that Woodstock City Council supports the decision to refuse to amend the zoning bylaw with respect to application ZN 8-23-07 401 Lakeview Drive, and further that the city clerk be instructed to advise the Ontario Land Tribunal.
Thank you. Is there a seconder on that? Counselor Tate, discussion or questions? Seeing none, I'm certainly going to support this still like I did originally. I think it's going to be hard to defend, as mentioned before. We will have a debate, I imagine, at County Council next week. So for those residents that are still here, be aware of that. Any other final questions or thoughts before I call the vote? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Next up, 14F.2, Zoning Bylaw Amendment Appeal, 18 and 20 Delater Street. Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. Looking for a motion? Counselor Schadenberg.
I'll make the motion that Woodstock City Council supports the decision to refuse to amend the zoning bylaw with respect to application ZN 8-24-20 for 18 to 20 Delater Street, and further, the city clerk be instructed to advise the Ontario Land Tribunal.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Counselor Tate? Discussion or questions? Again, these are becoming harder and harder to defend, of course, at the Land Tribunal, but I'm going to support this. With that, any other final comments or questions? Counselor Schattenberg?
I guess just a comment, Mayor. I think both of these amendments coming together along with other previous ones that we've brought to the Ontario Land Tribunal might give the hint to the Ontario Land Tribunal that the city of Woodstock and its council really does want to have say in how its planning is for our municipality, and what the terminology would be that I've heard from the Oxford County Planning Office on occasion, quote unquote, good planning, and just sort of leaving it as that, good planning, what makes sense.
Well said. Anyone else before I call the vote? With that, all those in favor? None opposed. That is carried. Nothing from the CAO, Human Resources, Fire Services, Public Works, or IT tonight. No special committee advisory task force reports. No notice of motions, no new business. But of course, we do have draft bylaws. With that, Councillor Leatherborough.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Wismer Van Meer that the following bylaws be given a first and second reading. 9741-25, a bylaw to amend Municipal Code Chapter 466, Fire Routes Designation. 9742-25, a bylaw to amend the composition of the Council of the Corporation of the City of Woodstock. 9743-25, a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw number 8626-10 as amended. ZN 8-24-24, 365 Kendall Ave. 9745-25, a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw number 8626-10 as amended. ZN 8-24-10, 394, 398, 400, 408, 412 Norwich Ave.
Thank you. Discussions or questions on those? Seeing none, call the vote. All those in favor? None opposed. Councillor Leatherborough.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Tate, that the following bylaw be given a first and second reading. 9744-25, a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw number 8626-10 as amended. ZN 8-24-22, 747 Pavey Street and 97 Fife Ave.
Thank you. Discussions or questions on those? Or that one, sorry. All those in favor? That is carried. Councillor Leatherborough.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Schattenberg, that the following bylaws be given a third and final reading. 9741-25, 9742-25, 9743-25, 9745-25.
Thank you. Questions, discussions? Last chance. Seeing none, all those in favor? That is carried. Councillor Leatherborough.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Wismer Van Meer, that the following bylaws be given a third and final reading. 9744-25.
Thank you. Any questions on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is carried. Well, that brings us to the end of the meeting this evening. And tonight we will start with addresses from Councillor Schattenberg. Haven't started with you for a while.
Just a reminder that this is the year that's the 50th anniversary for DASO, the Domestic Abuse Services Oxford. So they're having an event called Soup Stock 25, and it's going to be at Reeves Golf Hall on Wednesday, March 26th. Great time to check out soups from different restaurants around town. At Reeves Golf Hall, it says 2 sittings that day, 11:30 a.m. and 12:45. And I've been to this event before. It really does get very, very busy at 11:30, then again at 12:45. So make sure you buy tickets for your seating that you want to attend. The other thing I wanted to mention is March 31st is the deadline to nominate, as it says in the WOW magazine, nominate your local sports hero. Woodstock Sports Wall of Fame will be doing an induction ceremony later this year. And of course, there's 7 categories, including male athlete, female athlete, team, builder of sport, historic, which is something before 1970, lifetime achievement. And as I mentioned, there's 7 categories altogether, and the deadline to apply or to nominate somebody is the 31st of March. Last thing I want to mention is certainly condolences to Connie Lauder for the passing of her husband, John. He was 94 years old, passed away on March the 15th. And one of the stories I talked to Connie about, because it's kind of a sports related thing, is when the 1976 Olympic torch relay was going through Woodstock. Individuals like Norm Carter were involved in doing that event locally and John Lauder was always a long distance runner, and he participated in that torch relay through the streets of Woodstock. Actually, he was an avid carpenter, a gardener, construction, and so many other things he was involved with. It's kind of interesting that I saw one profile on him that said he retired 5 times from different work, and I saw one note from CAST, which of course is the old youth acting group out of Theater Woodstock, that they described him with a soft heart and as an excellent cook. And what's very important about John Lauder in general was his personality, is the fact that he would just basically do everything for anybody. And again, just so you know, on next Tuesday from noon until 3 at the Legion, 642 Dundas Street, there will be a celebration of life for Mr. Lauder. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Wismer Van Meer.
I also echo my condolences to Councillor Lauder and as well to our Woodstock Police Department, who unfortunately lost one of our officers in this last week. So, and in speaking to a couple of staff members who worked there, they spoke very highly of him, and I think that he's one of the ones that will be deeply missed. So our condolences to them as well. I'm going to keep it short because today's my husband's birthday, and I've only seen him for about 30 minutes today, so maybe I'll actually get to see him for his birthday. And I still have to prep because we have our trivia night tomorrow night. I know that a couple of the Woodstock staff are there, so despite the bribes, no, nobody tried to bribe me. I was not giving away any of the questions. And I did want to just send a quick thank you to all of the staff. Mrs. Campbell and Ms. Humphreys were getting very late night emails from me this week. So I really appreciate all of the staff, not just them, but all of the staff making themselves available to us. I wasn't expecting emails back at 1 a.m., but they were quick to reply the next day. So I appreciate everybody helping us through this, because it's definitely not an easy task to get through.
Yes, thank you. Councillor Tate.
I also want to extend my condolences to Councillor Lauder and her family. They've been through a lot. If you've seen the obit, you will see all the tragedy they've had in their life. One thing about John, he did all the cooking. So anybody that knows Connie, feel free to take food over because she doesn't cook. So John did all the cooking. Former Mayor Sebeski said once he has never met a stronger man in his life than John Lauder. He was a tough, strong man. One of my clients called me yesterday and said, "Was he really 94? There's no way," because he never looked it. But just on that, because I know Councillor Lauder, when she's back, she probably won't want to speak to it because it'd be too difficult. But stressed over and over how lucky we are to have Sakura House. So if you've ever had anybody in there, it is the benefit to the family and to the person there, it cannot be measured. So I just want to give a shout out to John Goodman and Leslie Farrell. Leslie spent years and years doing fundraisers for that. And between the two of them, there was hundreds of thousands of dollars, not for any benefit of their own, but for Secure House, because they believed in it. And I've always said we have a very generous community, and that facility is the testament to that. And that's it. Thanks.
Yes, couldn't agree more. Counselor Martin.
Thank you. Sorry, not really feeling well enough to say a lot of words, but I do echo that my condolences. I've tried to find the words the last few days to express how I feel for Councillor Lauder. As Councillor Tate said, there's been a lot of loss and a lot of devastation in their family in the last couple of years. Connie is Councillor Lauder is an incredibly strong person, but this is a lot for any one person to handle. And so my thoughts, and did not know about the cooking, but I love to cook, and so I will be taking over a meal.
Thank you. Counselor Leatherborough.
My condolences to Councillor Lauder and her family as well. Very, very sad. And thank you for sharing the celebration of life. And yeah, I will also acknowledge that today is the first day of spring, and I'll enjoy when the warm weather comes back again.
Well, again, I have condolences to the Lauder family, but I want to say condolences to a lot of staff right now. There's been other losses that have been felt by staff, and just everybody's in thoughts and prayers, and been going to and will continue to be going to a lot of services and celebrations of life. And this is a tough time for many. So just want you to know that our thoughts and prayers are with you while you're dealing with that. Today was a very busy day. I was out with the VON for the March for Meals campaign. Did you know that VON served 11,585 meals in Woodstock last year? And Oxford County, sorry, I'm sure that includes Oxford County. It was just, that number just amazed me. We're talking about meals and think of those that are needing the assistance. Yeah, and I was also at Cass Culture Day. So it was the first time I ever participated in 3 tug-of-wars in a suit. So it was a lot of fun. I want to thank Cass for having me involved so heavily. It's no secret, I love involving youth and getting their interest. And welcome any other of the schools for other events, because that was a lot of fun today. I'm going to feel it tomorrow. In fact, I just had a leg cramp. I know what it's from. Tomorrow I'm a little worried. I had a few days off, and I want to thank Councillor Wismer Van Meer, or Acting Mayor Councillor Wismer Van Meer, for kind of stepping in and kind of covering things for a few days while I was away. So thank you very much for that. I heard your interview on our friends over at Heart FM, and well done. Obviously, that is a little more comfortable for you than probably me at beginning with. So thank you so much for covering me. And with that, just weather again is changing. It seems to be up and down here over the next little while. Just be cautious while you're driving around, and please slow down. There've been some accidents again around here that's caused some major damage, and luckily, not that I'm aware of anyways, no major injuries. But please slow down, everyone. Take a few extra minutes to get where you're going, and don't put any lives in jeopardy, including your own. With that, I'll call for an adjournment. Councillor Wismer Van Meer, seconded by Councillor Leatherborough. All those in favor? We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.